faith. We must have unwavering faith. How many of you, by a show of hands, would say, we serve a big God? Okay. And if you believe that, amen. We serve, I'm here to tell you, I'm here to declare it tonight that we serve a big God. I'm not talking about this kind of God. I'm talking about magnificent, huge type of God. We must understand what kind of God we serve. The person and the work of Christ is so big, and we must have that type of unwavering faith. Understanding this type of faith will bring certain consequences and could potentially send us consequences in our life. If you've read on in 1 Kings in chapter 18, you'll see where Obadiah is there. And Obadiah, he's encountering Elijah, and Elijah's far off. And Obadiah comes and he sees him from a distance, and he's thinking, is that really Elijah? Because he knows he's been gone. And he looks off, and Elijah is there, and Obadiah is there, and they're both like just fascinated with each other being there and being in that place together because he's been in hiding. And Obadiah tells him, look, dude, the king has been looking all over for you. He's wanting to take you out. In fact, he's been to every city. And this is what verse 10 says in chapter 18. He says, for I swear by the Lord your God that the king has searched every nation and he has searched every kingdom on the earth from the end to the end to find you. And each time he had told you, Elijah isn't here. And King Ahab forced the king of that nation to swear to the truth of this claim. And this unwavering faith that God would tell us to have it's this obedience. And I will tell you tonight, I tell you this to encourage you, not to discourage you, but when you are obedient to God, watch out as the enemy of your soul will come after you. There will be attacks from the enemy. There will be an assignment set against you. How many of you guys have ever experienced that? When things are right in your life, how many of you guys know the attacks come? When you're obedient to God, the attacks come. It's this unwavering faith that in Elijah's life, he knows that no matter what happens, no matter how much the king has wanted to come after him, he must move on. And this is where it is. This is where the unwavering faith comes on. This is one of the most amazing stories that we will read in the Old Testament about a man of faith. In verse 19, read this aloud with me, or read this along with me. Now, summon all of Israel. He's getting ready for the showdown. This is where the prophets come together. This is at the OK Corral. This is where the tombstone comes together. When I'll be your huckleberry is about to happen. Oh, yeah. The showdown's about to happen. And he says this, now summon all of Israel to join me in Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who are supported by Jezebel. All of these are being supported by the king. All of these false god prophets, all of these people that are worshiping a false god. Verse 20 says this, so Ahab summoned all of the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. So how many of you guys know that was a big crowd gathered around there? Verse 21, then Elijah stood in front of them and said, how much longer will you waver? Hobbling between two opinions. He's basically saying, here's the practical atheist, right? How long will you waver between the two gods, the God of Baal or the God of Israel, Isaac and Jacob? How long will you waver? How long will you hobble between two opinions? If the Lord is God, what does he say? Follow him. But if Baal is God, then what? Then follow him. But the people were completely silent. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only prophet of the Lord who is left. How many of you guys feel like that sometimes? Though You know the background of the story. If you don't know the story, he's not the only prophet in town. He's not the only one that God has kept. He's kept a remnant. There's more than 100 prophets that are still left that Obadiah had hidden in the cave. But here's the deal. Sometimes we just feel alone, and we could waver in our faith, and we could say, I'm by myself. I can't do this alone. And we will just forget the task that God has given us. But yet Elijah said, I will stand for my God. If every prophet of Baal shows up and I'm the only one standing, I will stand for my God. And that's got to spur something in us. There's a great crowd that is gathered, and there he is with this unwavering faith. Now in verse 23, this is what he says. He says, now bring 2 bulls. The prophets of Baal may choose whichever one they wish, because he wanted it to be all about fair. And he says, cut them into pieces and lay it on the wood of the altar, but without setting fire to it. He said, I will prepare the other bull, and I will lay it on the wood on the other altar, but do not set fire to it. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by setting what? Say it aloud. Say, by fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. So here they are. Here's the showdown. We've got all the prophets there. We've got the prophets of Baal and Asherah. They're all dressed up, ready to go, 450 of them. And then there's Elijah. And he's there, and he said, prepare the bulls. You pick whoever you want. Pick whichever one, I really don't care. And he says, let's build 2 altars, and here we go. So 450 to 1, I would say Elijah's got some pretty unwavering faith. But in our hearts, we must ask ourselves, we raised our hand to say we serve a big God. We read about a big God in this Bible right here. We read about a big God in this word right here. But in our hearts, do we have this type of faith? Do we? Do we have this type of faith? Do we have the type of faith when everything and everyone is stamped against us, and it's all stacked against us, and we know that we are the only clear voice, that we are the only voice of truth? Do you and I have this type of faith? Is it unwavering? Can we trust God at this type of level? Let me explain how significant this offering is and why Elijah chose to take these 2 offerings and make it all about fire. Number one is this, is that the Baal is the god of fire. He is the sun god. He is the God that they worship, that gives storms and lightning and fire. And this is what his job is. That's what they worship him for. And so Elijah says, you know what? We're just going to pray that your fire God can bring fire. So that's pretty significant, isn't it? Because Elijah's there, and he's got the God of the universe right there with him. But yet he allows them to take their God and to put up the test of what this test could be, and it should be easy for them. So they begin to build these places, and the people there, Ahab's prophets, they put on their garb, they put on their robes, and I can imagine what they look like. They get all dressed up, and these 450 prophets of Baal, they get ready to go, and all of a sudden, they just begin to dance around the wood there, and I can imagine, kind of what this would look like, and I wanted to show you real quick what that may resemble tonight. Prophets of Baal, you want to dance. Prophets of Baal, you want to dance. And if they don't dance, I'm going to make every person in this building stand up and do the dance of the prophets of Baal. I'm going to cue that as we don't have it, so I'm going to sing. Well, let me share with you what I was thinking. Obviously, that isn't going to work. So here's the deal. In my mind, as I was reading this week about these little prophets, and they're dancing and dressing up and dancing around the altar and dancing around the bull, I guess I'm just supposed to do this. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it. They're dancing around. They're doing their thing. You know, they got it together, and they're dancing around, and they're believing and shouting and dancing and shouting and dancing. And this is what happens. Absolutely nothing. Nothing happens. They have danced, they have sang, they begin cutting themselves, they begin doing all that they can to call on their God and to make their petitions known. And Elijah's there. And I love the story because Elijah is just laughing inside. I mean, he's got the Santa Claus chuckle going on. I mean, he's got it going on. He is laughing his tail off. And you'll see it. You read on down in verse 27. Here it is. At about noontime, Elijah began just mocking them. You'll have to shout louder, he scoffed, for surely he is a god. Perhaps he's daydreaming, or he's relieving himself. Now, I looked this up here, and here's the deal. In the original literal writing, it is talking about him literally going to the bathroom, and that is why their God is not answering. He said, he's relieving himself. Just shout a little louder. Shout a little louder. And he says, or maybe he's away on a trip, or he's asleep, or maybe he needs to be awakened.